Okay, as we enter the late war, modified things, DEFCON's back up to 3. Yay! Both sides had a lot of trouble finding a card that they were willing to play as a headline event. Not just, usually there's kind of a, okay, these are the ones I kind of really, there's almost always one I really want to play. In the Russian case, they're playing terrorism. It's going to be a random discard of a card for the US. Well, the event doesn't happen or anything. I would kind of like to hold this in case the Iran hostage card came up. And for the US, well, they're going to play the Red Scare, which is going to reduce the ops of all the Russian cards. They like that one. It's just there wasn't anything better, and it's kind of a pain to give up that big 4-pointer. So I got to randomize a card. I think I've got like, should have 8 left or something. Let's see what we lose. 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 6, 8 going down from the top. That'll be this one. We're losing Ortega elected president. No big loss there for the U.S. In fact, I think most of their cards are Russian cards. The only thing they were really considering the India-Pakistan war, but they figured, well, if I got to play one thing, this is not such a this is kind of even better one to get shot off right at the first. So now the Russians will be playing with a little bit of a disadvantage, and that's about where. Really a heavy burden on the Russians because, well, okay, it's bad enough their own cards. Their own cards they can decide, all right, I'll play these as events, except the 2 that they have are cards which can't be played in the late war period. This one just can't be in the late war, and this one, because of the Camp David Accords, is neutralized. So I got a couple of 1-pointers. Okay, that's great. But then these guys, the U.S. events, where they're triggering an event that's been weighed to somewhat equal the value of the card, well, they've got a penalty on each of these of 1, so they'll only get 2 actions. Worse, they can't even fire them into space because it needs to be a 3-ops card, and at the -1, they don't have any of those. The one thing they have that's not going to make a difference is the Central American scoring, and they're going to have to kind of focus on trying to get that and see if they can score some points off that. Right now they're in a lot of trouble victory point-wise, though. This NORAD card that they're holding is kind of weird. Like I said, I think it's probably supposed to be removed from the deck. I don't have any errata kicking around in my rule book, though. And the game didn't come with any that I'm aware of. So it's kind of a shame. If it is supposed to be removed, well, I should have removed it. But with it not being removed, I've got this kind of question of, well, okay, this event is canceled by Quagmire, but if I play it again, does the event start over again? I would say no, but there's got to be questions about this card and its usage somewhere on the web. I'm not someone who likes to look things up like that. The games should be published in their complete form, especially since this card actually went through a revision, because I'm sure these were printed in a C3I or something before they made their way into the deluxe edition of the game. You can't expect that they've nailed the things down by then. Okay, let's see what we got here. So the Russians did play the NORAD card, and I'm saying it has no effect, no event on it, essentially. I think it was supposed to be removed from play. They played that as a coup. Their traditional blast things off with a first coup. They did it against Cuba. Maybe they should have done it against Panama, but with Panama's high value in terms of total influence, it seemed better to go for the one they might get. Well, they weren't going to get either one, and they basically failed. The U.S. had the Indo-Pakistan War in their hand, which allowed them to get their own military operations completed, and they actually won it, getting a couple of victory points here. Now, one of those got returned somewhere. Oh yeah, off the scoring. A couple of victory points, and they actually gained control of India. So Asia's looking very, very pro-US at this point. And then the Russians decided to give up on Central America They scored this. They netted 1 victory point, basically a presence for both sides. Both sides had 1 region, one key zone, whatever the hell they're called, battlefield state. But they have them one next to the USA, so they're able to score an extra point from that. And then for the U.S., they played the Yuri and Samantha card, which means the Russians will get a victory point anytime the U.S. does a coup. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Not with DEFCON 2, probably. But you never know. There might be something to up the DEFCON, and so that could be a definite minus. All right. Wow. Okay, so let me explain what's happening. The Russians trickled in a 1-point card. Not a whole hell of a lot they can do. They upped Algeria, and now they have control there. I should have marked that. The U.S. blew Warsaw Pact, formed into space. That was worth 4 victory points, and that put me up to 19. I'm 1 point away from a victory here. How do you squeeze another point out of this? That's a tough call. But obviously the Russians are going to try to scavenge a point if they can get one. If they hadn't done the Central America... Oh, I do hope that was Central and not South. I can't see. It's in here. Yeah. If they hadn't done the Central America scoring, it would be over right now if they had held on to that a little longer. Good reason. Always pay attention to what's going on up here. I wasn't. One thing that pissed me off, though, I noticed the thing that I gotten called on a rules thing. Well, it turns out this is one of their official options, and it makes so much more sense that realignment rolls could be done without worrying about pushing the military button a little too hard. Okay, maybe from a gameplay standpoint and a balance standpoint, there's some reason to go in the other direction, but I don't give a shit about that. I actually like that option. I also like the option for the space race, where you can dump a card and not roll a die if you wish, for some reason. I'm not sure why you would possibly want to do that, though. All right. It just seems to me an advantage to move forward, except eventually you'll reach the space station and you can't dump another one. I don't know where we are. I think we're here, but we may be another one further. I'll check and come. Players are coming down to cards they do not want to play. And that's one of the factors in this game. How do you cope with the stuff you don't want to see, and how do you best time it? The Ussuri River Skirmish. Now, this is removed from play. This gave the U.S. 4 influence in Asia, and they just gutted the Soviet influence zones there. On the other hand, the U.S., and I don't remember what they played that to go into Germany, West Germany, and then the U.S. topped off West Germany to make sure they have control still, but they did it with Che, and that gave the Russians a coup attempt, which they took here in the Southeast African states and ended up getting them. Not a big bonus there. They weren't allowed to coup a battleground state with the Che card, thus. Okay, still the play-counterplay going on here. The Russians played the Arab-Israeli War. No big deal there. That doesn't cost them. They upped North Korea, trying to put themselves in a position where they can get it back. This is a card the U.S. does not want to play, but when they looked at their number of cards they had and the number of plays they have to make, because they had a card stolen from them and they already shot Warsaw Pact into space, they've got to play this sucker. They like this better than Warsaw Pact. But this is the Muslim Revolution. All U.S. influence, they used it and pumped up North Korea. They still don't own control of it, but that's okay. They're fighting not where the game is going to be won, but for the most part, any scoring card will win things for them, except now the Middle East has been opened up. U.S. influence in 2 of them: Sudan, Iran, Iraq, Egypt, Libya, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Jordan. Well, Egypt is gone, and now the question is here, well, which one otherwise to take it? They're not that good elsewhere, but they're going to lose Saudi Arabia as well. And that's a pretty hefty blast again. Start to see both sides playing cards they don't want to. USSR had to play the North Sea oil card. Now, they haven't fired off a space race card yet. They could do so, and that would actually have been wise. This may not be the card. Oh, no, they're not allowed to. They need to spend a 3 ops card, and they don't have one. This is only a 3 minus 1 is 2 ops card. Okay, so this will mean OPEC, if it comes up, isn't playable. That's fine. And the U.S. is able to play 8 cards. That doesn't affect anything. All this really did is gave them some points, which they're continuing to fight in Korea for. And they actually gained control of South Korea this time. For the U.S., they pumped some more points in, and they put them into Egypt, regaining control in the Mideast. But this is a decolonization and allowed Russian influence in all the African territories as well as in Thailand. And that's kind of a painful situation. And now I think we're on the last basic card, and the U.S. gets an extra card. They could, if they want, play the China card for that. And that's, damn it, that's what I forgot about. That's how I could have avoided the Muslims card, is I was planning on playing the China card instead. Now, these things close off with the Russians playing the match to the decolonization, colonial rear guards, where the U.S. basically reversed that tendency, although I think they threw something into Algeria to take that control away from the Russians there. But you can see they've regained their control throughout most of the African regions, hoping for an African card. And the U.S. had to play the Iran-Contra scandal, and this has basically no effect if it's played towards the end of the game. It's going to be removed from the game. But it gave 2 more points, which was enough to grab Thailand, and I don't remember where else they plunked a point. Certainly, I don't know. I know they grabbed Thailand. They put another point somewhere else. Alright, well that's the end of these couple of annoying cards. Now these aren't going to come back, but they're still in the discard pile, and there's some things that allow you to pull things out of the discard pile. At this point we check the military capabilities. Everybody succeeded. I'm pissed about not playing the China card. And we move into Reagan Rani. And we'll start a new turn there. Russians walk into this turn, they realize they're in really tough shape. 1 point away from victory. Even if they can survive through 2 turns without giving U.S. a victory point, although the U.S. dominates the board prominently, even if they manage that, they've got a real problem, which is whatever it is that they're doing to try to prevent that victory point, whatever fire they're putting out at the moment, well, the U.S. can be laying nest eggs for that final turn, final victory point score. And I'm sitting on this Africa score, and I've got to prevent the victory from that. I look at that, and right now, the U.S. is doing well in Africa. I have to make it so the U.S. can gain a net 0 points there. My other cards don't really help with that. I've chosen to go with Missile Envy, which I get to steal the opponent's highest valued operations card. If it's got my event or an event I could use, I take it. If it has an opponent's event, then I get to use the operations point without triggering the event, and it steals a card from their hand. That's kind of cool. However, before that even gets to take effect, an evil empire, Reagan's speech, comes out, and the U.S. gains the last victory point, and the game is over. That's it. You cross that line, you win. It's that simple. And that's why it was such a hard position to be in. Well, I didn't really need to take that break if I had known that that card was going to be in the U.S. hand. And in fact, it wasn't the only one. They were sitting on a handful. Nuclear test ban would have given, I'm sorry, with Reagan out there, nuclear test ban would have given us a point. They also had, wanted to give the Russians a point that they don't want to do, but they were also sitting on Soviets shoot down KAL-007, which, wow, I just tried to do a face recognition on that. which would also cause 2 victory points to go to the U.S. So the U.S. was, even if there was some way to cancel this, sitting on a handful of cards that they could just be playing to try to pump the score up for the last turn. Great for them. Plus, with the China card, there are lots of events that will also cause a victory point. I don't think the Russians had any victory points other than the Africa scoring that would have done this. But that is the game. In terms of where I went wrong, where I went right, it's kind of hard to tell. With these CDGs, I have a tough time really picturing what I'm doing. So it's hard to tell what I did wrong. I played some cards wrong, maybe. Or maybe I was handed a bad hand of cards. But I don't think in terms that relate to how I'm winning the game. It just doesn't happen. There were key areas where I can say, yeah, wow, how did I lose control here in Asia? And didn't I have an advantage at one point in the Mideast? Whoa, with the US I did. And over here, how did this change hands? It doesn't look like the Russians were winning anywhere, though. It's not like they put a focus of pieces in one place and ended up making a poor choice and getting beaten everywhere else on the board slightly. It's not like it looks like that they were overwhelmed in terms of where they played. You might say, well, you got some points in Czechoslovakia. What the hell? Why'd you do that? You could have put them somewhere more useful. Well, Europe was important to me at that point. Maintaining the balance in Europe was important. Czechoslovakia was important. You'll see there's U.S. pieces in Greece that they chose to put there. In Spain and Portugal, they chose to put there. This was trying to get that the dominance value because of the victory points there. Of course, you don't see them having gotten the final point in Canada. At some point, it became not that important. It became important to move elsewhere. So it's really hard after the game for me to sit back and analyze and say, yeah, that's where I made a mistake. Now, I'm sure the more experienced players are able to see and say, yeah, no, Czechoslovakia was your mistake. From there on, everything was downhill and you would be steamrolled everywhere because of that. I don't see that. I'm sorry. I don't see chess games either, though. Somebody says, you moved your pawn. You couldn't move that pawn. It's over. It's not because of anything that was played out and obvious on the board. It's just, it was an opportunity missed where you could have moved some other piece that would have set up long-term goals better. And I have no idea. It does feel to me like the cards went better for the U.S. I think, it's been a while since I played, but I think the U.S. is in a pretty strong position in this game. If they can hold out through that early part of the game, that they tend to turn these around. The risk is early on, the cards are very bad for them. But I don't know. I haven't played it enough to really be able to speak to that at all. I'll come back with some final thoughts, a review type thing. Maybe not so much of Twilight Struggle itself, although I'll certainly touch on Twilight Struggle, but also of CDGs in general, because in a sense, this was the first CDG that it's certainly the first one I did a review to, and in a sense, it's the first one in my new exploration of them. I had looked at a couple long ago, but I think this one kind of exemplifies that. I think doing this video provides a nice bookend. I still have another one kicking around that I haven't played. Triumph of Chaos down there. I've read the rules, and then I've got things like Combat Commander that I haven't had a chance to play yet, but that's not really a CDG. But for the most part, I think I'm tapped out on my CDGs, and I'm not sure that I'm terribly interested in getting any more. Oh no, I've got some others that I haven't covered on video. The Wellington Kutuzov. I've done Kutuzov. They're kind of weird, but yeah, they're definitely in the general same family. The question here is, well, okay, why'd I hold off? Well, I didn't get around to them. I got around to doing this another time, and I think it is a good time to talk about it as the bookends of, at least, you know, my liking of them has kind of, my great interest in them has kind of gone downhill. And I think for the hobby as well, I think they've kind of lost some of that charm, which isn't to say Twilight Struggle has, or other key, well-loved ones. And here I am getting into the review stuff, and I really shouldn't. This should just be the wrap of this particular playing. So up it goes.